Random House Audiobooks presents Star Wars, Cloak of Deception by James Luceno. Read for you by Alexander Adams. Luxuriating in the unfailing light of countless stars, the Trade Federation freighter Revenue lazed at the edge of Dorvala's veil of alabaster clouds. The freighter resembled a saucer whose center had been pared away to create two massive hanger arms and a stalked center sphere that housed the great ship's hyperdrive reactors. Forward, the curving arms fell short of each other, as if in a failed attempt to close the circle. But in fact, the gap was there by design, with each arm terminating in colossal docking claws and gaping hangar portals. Like some gluttonous beast, a Trade Federation vessel didn't so much load as gobble cargo, and for close to 3 standard days the Revenue had been feeding at Dorvala. The outlying planet's principal commodity was lomite ore, a major component in the production of transparasteel viewports and starfighter canopies. Ungainly transports ferried the strip-mined ore into high orbit, where the payloads were transferred to a fleet of self-propelled barges, tenders, and cargo pods, many of them as large as shuttles, and all bearing the spherical flame sigil of the Trade Federation. Safeguarding the herd from attacks by pirates or other raiders flew patrols of bullet-nosed quad-thruster starfighters, wanting shields but armed with rapid-fire laser cannons. The droids that piloted the ships answered to a central control computer located in the freighter's center sphere. At the aft curve of the center sphere stood a command and control tower. The ship's bridge occupied the summit, where a robed figure paced nervously before an array of inwardly inclined viewports. "Status," the robed figure hissed. The Revenue's Nemoidian navigator responded from a throne-like chair set below the burnished floor of the bridge walkway. "The last of the cargo pods is being taken aboard, Commander Dauphine." "Very well, then," Dauphine replied. "Recall the starfighters." The navigator nodded. "As you will, Commander." Captain of the Revenue's skeleton crew of living beings, Dauphine had a pair of front-facing red oval eyes, a prominent muzzle, and a fish-lipped slash of mouth. Veins and arteries pulsed visibly beneath the surface of puckered and mottled pale green skin. Small for his species, his thin frame was draped in blue robes and a tall cone of black fabric. Even his headpiece suggested wealth and high office. The navigator was similarly attired in robes and headpiece, though his were of a simpler design. He communicated with the devices that encircled the pilot's chair by means of data readout goggles that cupped his eyes and a disc-shaped comlink that hid his mouth. The Revenue's communications technician was a jowled and limpid-eyed Celestin. The officer who interfaced with the central control computer was a Gran, 3-eyed with a Hircine face. Beaked and green-complexioned, the ship's assistant bursar was an Ishi Tib. Dauphine hated having to suffer aliens aboard his bridge, but he was compelled to do so as an accommodation to the lesser shipping concerns that had allied with the Trade Federation. Humaniform droids saw to all other tasks on the bridge. Dauphine had resumed his pacing when the Celestin spoke. "Commander, Dorvala Mining reports that the payment they received is short 100,000 Republic credits." Dauphine waved his long-fingered hand in dismissal. "Tell her to recheck her figures." The Celestin relayed Dauphine's words and waited for a reply. "She claims that you said the same thing the last time we were here." Dauphine exhaled theatrically and gestured to a large circular screen at the rear of the bridge. "Display her." The magnified image of a red-haired, freckle-faced human woman was resolving on the screen by the time Dauphine reached it. "I am not aware of any missing credits," he said without preamble. The woman's blue eyes flashed. "Don't lie to me, Dauphine. First it was 20,000, then 50, now 100. How much will we have to forfeit the next time the Trade Federation graces Dorvala with a visit?" Dauphine glanced knowingly at the Ishitib, who returned a faint grin. "Your world is far removed from normal space lanes," he said calmly toward the screen. "Your situation therefore demands additional expenditures. Of course, if you are displeased, you could always do business with some other concern." The woman snorted a rueful laugh. "Other concern? The Trade Federation has put everyone else under." Dauphine spread his large hands. "Then what is 100,000 credits, more or less?" "Extortion is what it is." The sour expression Dauphine adopted came naturally to his slack features. "I suggest you file a complaint with the Trade Commission on Coruscant." The woman fumed. Her nostrils flared and her cheeks reddened. "You haven't heard the last of this, Dauphine." Dauphine's mouth approximated a smile. "Ah, once again, you are mistaken." Abruptly, he ended the transmission, then swung back to face his fellow Nemoidian. "Inform me when the loading process is concluded." Deep in the hangar arms, droids supervised the disposition of the cargo pods from traffic stations located high above the deck. Scattered throughout the hangars were security automata toting modified blast-tech combat rifles, some with dispersal tips. The majority of the droids that comprised the Revenue Security Force were simply appendages of the freighter's central control computer, but a few had been equipped with a small measure of intelligence. The foreheads and chest plastrons of these lanky commanders were emblazoned with yellow markings similar to military unit flashes, though less for the sake of other droids than for the flesh and bloods to whom the commanders ultimately answered. OLR-4 was one such commander. Blaster rifle gripped in both hands and angled across his chest, the droid stood in Zone 2 of the ship's starboard hangar arm, halfway between the bulkheads that defined the immense space. OLR-4 was aware of the activity around him, but only in a vague way. Rather, OLR-4 had been tasked by the central control computer to watch for anything out of the ordinary, for any event that fell outside performance parameters defined by the computer itself. The resounding thud that accompanied the roosting of a nearby cargo pod was, given the size of the craft, well within those parameters. But the same couldn't be said for the hissing of pressure relief valves or the metallic clanks and stridencies that prefaced the slow rise of the pod's uncommonly large circular forward hatch. OLR-4's long head pivoted, and his oblique optical sensors fixed on the pod. Magnified and sharpened, the captured image was transmitted to the central control computer, which instantly compared it to a catalog of similar images. Discrepancies were noted. Even as OLR-4's photoreceptors were scrutinizing the rising hatch, additional security droids were already hurrying to assume positions to all sides of the suspect pod. OLR-4 planted his boot-like feet in a combat stance and leveled his blaster rifle. The open hatch should have revealed the interior of the pod, but instead it exposed what seemed to be yet another hatch, sealed shut. Before OLR-4 could move, the inner hatch had telescoped from the pod with enough force to launch 2 security droids and 3 worker droids halfway across the hangar. Immediately, OLR-4 and 3 others opened fire on the battering ram and the cargo pod itself, but the blaster bolts were deflected and sent ricocheting through the hold. OLR-4 rushed to one side, firing steadily and intent on gaining a better vantage on the intruders. In front of him, 2 security droids lost their heads to well-placed shots. OLR-4's internal monitors told him that his blaster was overheating and close to depletion, but OLR-4 kept firing while he attempted to angle behind the battering ram. He had almost reached the pod when a bolt caught him in the left shoulder. He staggered, but somehow managed to remain up.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?